I'm T.
And I'm Jarvis.
Make sure you follow Fill in the Blanks on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Check us out.
What's up, fam? I'm Tenitra Batiste.
And I'm Jarvis Davis.
And welcome back into Fill in the Blanks. What's going on, Jarvis? What's good?
Not too much. Trying to keep it cool, as always, you know.
I
It's
know.
a little warm in here sometimes, but we're going to figure that out.
Yes, and
I'm going to make sure of that
too. We had a little bit of a break at the end of last week and even this weekend, but it's right back to Hotlanta, isn't it?
Oh, man. I'm waiting for fall weather to get here.
Yes, me too.
Fall. You
Where
there?
you at? Where you at?
We need you right now, please.
But check it out, Jarvis. Speaking about hot, I do recognize it's early in the NFL season, but some NFL coaches are already on that proverbial hot seat. So, you look at Dan Quinn. Now, the Falcons are 1-2. They're still actually in the thick of things just because of how the NFC South is playing out already. You look at Mike Tomlin with the Steelers, they lost Ben Roethlisberger to injury for the season, lost Antonio Brown, lost Le'Veon Bell. So for me, I think it's a little too early to be talking about coaches being on the hot seat, although some of them may have come into the season on the hot seat. But is it too early? I mean, when is it time to start thinking about getting rid of a coach or actually getting rid of him? Or do you take into consideration factors like injuries, like Keanu Neal's injury that just happened, some of the injuries that happened for the Falcons with J.J. Wilcox and other players even before the season started, or losing somebody like Ben in week one?
I think one of the things when you have to take in consideration as an owner who makes those decisions, I think you have to take it in consideration is the message being received. And if it's being received, then are they actually executing that message? And I think that's the question you have to answer for Dan Quinn, because I think the Steelers and the Falcons are in two totally different situations.
Yeah.
When you talk about you losing your franchise quarterback in Pittsburgh, I think the quarterbacks are the NFL right now.
Yes.
They are that's why they're the highest paid position in the NFL. So I think you have to kind of take a look at the situation where Pittsburgh is, and I think Mike Tomlin gets a pass, and he's a Super Bowl winning head coach as well. So that's always you got to take that in consideration. But when you're talking about Dan Quinn, I think they're in a situation now where they're kind of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
When the team that you see on at home, inside 285, inside the Mercedes-Benz, but once they get on that plane and head somewhere and leave the state of Georgia, it's a totally different team.
All of a sudden, you wonder where the philosophy
like, who is this
right?
person? Like, who is this person? Like, why aren't you all getting up for these games on the road? Because you see the defense, if they're playing with intensity and those guys are, quote-unquote, up for the game, it's a different team. And Matt Ryan, his play is just been really questionable.
Yeah.
He's been questionable.
He might be the most Jekyll and Hyde of them all.
Right. He's been making a lot of mistakes when it comes to throwing the football to not necessarily bad luck per se. It bounces off the guy's chest or anything like that. Yes. He's throwing it right to the defender.
Yes.
And for him to be in the league as long as he has, and for him to be making the amount of money, I hate to get in people's pockets.
Sure.
But for him to be making the amount of money that he's making, I think you have to raise those questions, because if the message is not getting there, then as an owner, you have to then question what's going on.
Right, and I think about you from the perspective of being a former defensive player, looking at, like you said, that intensity, and where does that go from week to week? Do you have to be here to be able to get that intensity or not? Also, like you said, Matt Ryan is the benefactor of having all his weapons in front of him. They've got a running back core that's
excuses.
5 deep, exactly.
Yeah.
Even with Ito Smith maybe being injured, we don't know how, where that's going to take the Falcons for the next few weeks, but certainly you've got him, you've got Julio Jones, you've got Calvin Ridley, so he's got the weapons. Unfortunately, Big Ben and Mike Tomlin don't. Well, even from week one, Big Ben didn't have those weapons, and now Mike Tomlin doesn't even have his weapon. So like you said, that may get you a pass at least into next season. But what doesn't get you a pass is when you just keep doing and keep being the center of just tomfoolery. So let's talk about one of the pieces that the Steelers no longer have in Antonio Brown, as we know that the saga
That's your
just
boy,
continues.
Right?
Was my boy, Steeler Nation. We let him, we retired him. He retired us.
Right.
We have moved on.
Yeah.
But, he says that he has actually moved on, not just from the Steelers, but from the NFL overall, said he is re-enrolling or has re-enrolled in school at Central Michigan and says he's never playing again. He's done. I don't know if I believe that, because it seemed like from day one, this has been all about a chess match to get Antonio Brown where he ultimately wants to be, wherever that is. But Jarvis, I mean, do you think that he's really done with the league, or is it just another chess move?
I know you're not supposed to do this, but I'm going to answer a question with a question.
Yeah.
When has Antonio Brown made a decision and stuck to it?
Yes.
I'll wait. The answer is he hasn't. So
right.
I think for now, I believe him for now.
Mm-hmm.
I believe him for now. Because
yeah.
I don't think he's going to be on the NFL team for the rest of this season. Because the main reason why I believe that is because I think the NFL is going to take their time with this investigation.
Because layers keep coming.
Because there's so many layers to it. And the NFL doesn't want to make a mistake because they are all about the optics. They believe in not looking bad.
Yes.
Even though they're still bad at not looking bad.
Right, because of the inconsistencies every time this type of situation comes up, right?
Exactly.
Kareem Hunt.
You don't know where Roger Goodell is going to go
Yes.
when he's making decisions on whether these guys are going to get paid, they're going to be on the list, commissioner's list, or they're going to be suspended for 6 games, 12 games, or 8 games.
Right.
It seems like it's always a toss-up. Nobody really knows where he's going. So due to the inconsistency that is the NFL, I think Antonio Brown is done for this season. And I think he's just trying to do something to pass some time because right now, I believe if somebody gives him a call next season, say this blows over, he gets off of this particular situation he has from a civil standpoint. I think he'll definitely consider. But he did bring up in the interview on ESPN where he talked about how he doesn't need football.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that he is talking about financially. So if financially he's in a good place and he's taking care of his money, okay, I might believe you long term, but for now, I can't believe him.
Now, a couple of our viewers, and thank you guys for checking in. Jason Sanford asks a great question. He says, guys, do you think AB will get that guaranteed money back that he lost from both the Raiders and the Pats? And I say, it depends, because most of the players have what's called a morality clause.
Right.
You've got that to consider. You also have to take into consideration what Jarvis said, which is how long is the league actually going to stretch this out? Is this going to be something where if they're anticipating an 8-game suspension, which is what most legal analysts are putting out there, then if they stretch this for a good maybe 4 or 6 more weeks, he's out for the season anyway. But I think the most important piece is there. We haven't yet heard any information on what that morality clause looks like and what some of the other pieces in the puzzle are that he's contending are invalid per the contract versus the Patriots really kind of going silent on us after they had their 1-sentence statement of releasing him.
You know what? I think the teams may be in trouble, and I think they may be on the hook for that money because they said they did not know about those allegations. And I think that's bull hockey. Yeah. But they said they didn't know about those allegations. So if you didn't know about those allegations, how can you then exercise the morality clause?
Right. Well, like I said, it probably is a situation where, depending on definition of knowledge.
Right, there you go.
Because you know how the Chiefs played that game last year and how that ended up working out.
Over there.
Yeah, exactly. So you know how that situation worked out when last we checked in with the Chiefs and Kareem Hunt. And finally, boy, oh boy, was this an amazing college football weekend down in Athens, right?
Yes.
I mean, the top 5 pretty much remain the same. Clemson number 1, Bama number 2, and LSU moved up to number 4. Ohio State's at 5. Right. But it's really Georgia and what they were able to do in the absence of some of their key players, especially on offense. You're talking about an O-lineman going down. You're talking about a receiver going down. And yet they were able to gut it out. So, Jarvis, I feel like that might have been a signature win for them, especially, of course, with getting consideration for the college football playoff. But more importantly, they've been lauded the entire season as having the best O-line in the country. And not just the best, but the depth was there. And that's what I think we saw in Athens on Saturday.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was definitely going to bring up. I think you touched on it really well. The offensive line is great. Kirby Smart believes in getting big, girthy guys.
Yes.
Guys that kind of look like me, but then I'm not as in shape as those guys anymore. But those are the type of guys that he wants on up front, and it shows because you're able to dominate guys. And I think that Georgia really sent the message because I didn't think that people. I think people kind of took Notre Dame for granted.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they didn't believe in that number 7 ranking coming into that game.
Right, and that 14-point favorite showed you just what people
right,
thought.
Exactly. And even Las Vegas didn't believe
That's
in
right.
it. So I think that when you have a game of this magnitude and you have Notre Dame coming in like they did and playing like they did, I was saying that at least for that first half, they're going to look like they belong.
They did. Yes.
But in that second half, you start to see, okay, then Georgia, because Jake Fromm had a look on his face. I never forget it. At the end of the third quarter, you know they go out and hold up the fours and everything like that. Like, fourth quarter, it's time to go. He had a look on his face saying, you know what, we got this.
It's go time.
It's go time. And I think in order for Georgia to really take it to another level, they're going to start putting the ball in 11's hands. That's Jake Fromm.
They
have to trust him and let him know that he's going to make the right decision with the football, because he's proved it time and time again in those situations. He is going to flourish.
Yes. And I think he will show the country that even though Georgia is known as running back U, that ultimately speaking, it's about to be Jake Fromm U in Athens. So let's go. Ready, set, Jarvis. It is time for rapid fire. We're going to get it in with our 5 top topics, if you will. Starting off with, wow, this one I think makes both of us pretty sad because we've been covering him for a couple years. We know him to be a great guy, inside and out, on and off that field. To see Keanu Neal go down one more time with that torn Achilles at the end of the first half in the Falcons-Colts game on Sunday, I just think ripped a lot of people apart. Just, again, for who he is on the field and off the field, and having to go through this for a second season in a row. So you look at him and the fact that you got a lot of people that thought, Drew Brees is out for 6 weeks. This should be the lane that, the Falcons should be able to take advantage and really put themselves in the driver's seat for the NFC South. But the Saints won. Oh, God. Without Breezy, under center, Teddy Bridgewater.
Look fine, right?
Right. So when you think about the fact that now the Falcons have to somewhat go back to the drawing board in their secondary, and the Saints are looking like a team that can walk away minus Drew Brees, maybe coming off 4-2, going into that Saints-Falcons game in New Orleans. How concerned are you about where the Falcons are as we're kind of approaching that first quarter of the season?
First off, I want to say, like, to see what Keanu Neal is going through, it kind of brings back some memories, because when you come back off an injury, there are so many things going through your mind. Because I actually tore my PCL, partially tore my ACL, partially tore my MCL in my junior year. And coming back from that, it is I think it's more mental anguish that I went through than the physical, because I went through my rehab situation and all those things kind of came back for me. But I had to get right in my mind first. So to be able to go through that process from the physical standpoint and then go through the process mentally. Now, we don't really necessarily know. He said he was fine. He said, he was ready for it, to be able to take that first hit, make that first plan and go knock somebody ding in the dirt.
Yes.
I think that, but there's still some things that he didn't reveal to us that I know he was going through, because that's just what you go through when you go to those especially those lower extremities injuries. Those things kind of can really kind of get to you and mess with you. But to see him go through something like that, it kind of hurt me. Because you saw the look, he got emotional, and he was crying. He threw the helmet and everything, and then he got a penalty on top of that. I'm just
unsportsmanlike conduct.
And Quinn talked about how if that were him, he can't say, "Hey, they should have done this," because he might get a fine. But he said, if that were me, I would have paid attention to what was going on, and I would have picked up the flag. But I think that the Falcons right now, they're in dire need of a shock. I don't know what that shock could be. Could it be sitting down a veteran? Could it be saying, hey, this guy's going to move on, or we're going to move this guy to this certain position, or is it sitting down a guy on defense? So I think all those things come into play. I think it's time for me to shut up. When all those things come into play with the Falcons, it's just you're trying to look at Dan Quinn to see what he's going to do, because they need something. And I think it's more intangible than something that you can actually see.
Right. Now, going back to what you said about that mental piece, it's interesting because I had a chance to interview Cam Newton a couple weeks ago, and I asked him that question. Ron Rivera talked about the fact that he knew in his mind, he had no doubt, that Cam would be ready to come back week 1. Cam said he was ready to come back week 1. But here we are going into week 4, and we're looking at him not playing that game against the Texans. So, Jarvis, I wonder, and a lot of people are wondering right now, especially here in Atlanta, native son, is this just a couple games? Is it a couple games thing? Is it a rest of the season thing with this injury? Is it mental? Is Cam done? What, where are we with Cam?
I think personally, Cam Newton is done with football after this season.
Yeah.
Because when you just look at the way he's been kind of setting himself off the field, he's setting himself off the field. He has a couple business ventures down here in Atlanta.
Yes. Which one of them I love? Fellowship, shout out.
Right, no doubt.
Great place. Great place to go.
I got to
get
down there, by the way, to check that out.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, so I think that when you look at how, and I even think of the same thing in the mind of Julio Jones with his investments and the money he's been putting into certain things that's going on in his area up in Gwinnett County.
Yes.
So when you look at the moves these guys are making, I don't think these guys are playing till they can't play anymore.
Right.
That's not. I mean, they make enough money now to not be able to do that. So I think that we've seen probably the best of Cam Newton.
Yes.
And I think that Cam Newton will not play in another jersey. I don't think he plays because I think Carolina moves on from him, or they find a way to move on from him, and they just set themselves up for without having a number one behind the center.
Right, and you've seen that trend coming in sports, especially in football. We've seen it a lot lately, but I would agree with you, Jarvis, that I think Andrew Luck set the stage for that earlier this season, for that guy who's technically at the top of the heap to be able to say, you know what, my body says no, my mind says no, it's just time to go. Now, speaking of time to go, the Philly fans, they will tell you where to go and when to go.
Good Lord.
They just have no chill, Jarvis. It's just unbelievable. So, Nelson Aguilar, who, thank goodness, dropped the ball at 2 and allowed the Falcons to get
Lord
their
knows
one win of the
yeah.
season. So we're not mad when bruh, misses a ball. So he missed a couple key easy passes in their loss to the Lions as well on Sunday and got caught, and he caught a lot of heat from a former fireman in Philly. So this guy, Hakeem Laws, he's walking up the block in Philly. He sees a house going up in flames. So, just a former fireman, his natural instinct is to go in there and just be Captain Saver. But as he was saving the person, he says, I see a guy hanging out the window screaming that his kids were in there. My mind just says, start throwing the babies out. So the guy starts throwing the babies out. The former fireman catches him and then says, unlike
Nelson
Aguilar.
Aguilar.
Nelson Aguilar.
Uh-huh.
Unlike Nelson Aguilar, I don't miss things. No chill. You saving lives and you talking about somebody missing football.
Give the man some credit. That's focus. Like,
I know.
For you to be catching babies, like real live babies.
And hating at the same time.
And hating at the same time and being petty. Oh my God. Like that man deserves an award.
Yes,
not
Pettymonger,
a
he
hero
does.
award. I'm talking about he deserves an award from me, like Pettymonger himself. I think, but I don't mind that because it's Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Like
it's
they
what
booed
we
Santa
expect.
Claus.
Yeah.
They booed they clapped when Michael Irvin was hurt.
Yeah.
So whatever Philadelphia fans do or say when it comes to their support of their team,
doesn't surprise you.
Well, I don't even know if that is that support?
Considered support?
I don't know what that is. Like because he just threw a straight up bomb. And the thing that I like about the other side of that is Aguilar actually reached out to.
Yes.
He said he put a message out there on Twitter saying, "Hey, help me find this guy."
Right.
And he offered the man tickets.
Real classy.
Now that's some big man.
Yeah, that's big man. Yeah.
That's like some upper level echelon of.
That's some Dr. Tanae Davis moves, like we talked about last week. Yeah, that's very altruistic.
Man,
yeah, I like that. I can appreciate that.
I like that word, altruistic.
Yeah,
yes,
use that
like
in a sentence for me.
I know, right? I use it later on.
Use it later on because what was not altruistic was the way that the Emmys handled Miss Beyonce. Now, I'm a part of the Beehive, so I got a little problem with the way they handled her with her Emmy nominations. They did okay.
Okay.
Actually giving her the awards, and our stage manager is agreeing with me on this one, so I got some backup, but she was nominated for 6 Emmys for Homecoming. Did you happen to see Homecoming on Netflix?
Yes, I caught some of it. Yes,
yeah,
I was very impressed by just the putting the message out there of what
who
we're all about.
Yes.
Yeah, the HBCU
what
experience.
We are. Yes,
oh man,
yes.
It's nothing like it, and I will continue to pound the table for HBCUs because it just creates a nice little nest egg where we can kind of just figure out who we are and what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. Yeah, and you appreciate that. So yeah, I'm all for that HBCU love. But shout out to Beyonce, man. I'm not part of the Beehive, but I give her a quick shout out though.
But you're part
Appreciate
of the HBCU hive. So,
I'm on that. I'm all in
you're
for
all
that.
in with that.
No
Yeah,
doubt.
yeah. So for me, it had sort of a feel and an overtone of Oscar So White. So I felt like that was Emmy So White all over again because because when you talk about the nominations, directing for a variety special, outstanding music directing, outstanding writing for a variety special, very impressive for them to recognize. But to see those works and then to see some of the productions that got nominated, like Rent and Springsteen Does Broadway. No offense, Bruce Springsteen, but I mean, what B was able to do, incorporating entertainment and really educating the country, and if not the world, about who HBCUs are and our rich culture and heritage. I just thought that was so much more of a great message, and the way that she kind of pulled that in. And, you know, it's homecoming season, so of course we're all excited about talking about that at this moment. And I know in a couple of weeks we'll be able to talk about, hopefully, you guys and your experience going down to Albany State for homecoming.
Yeah, we got to get down there.
Got to get there. Exactly. That needs to be on my bucket list too, because, you know, I'm all about that homecoming visitation.
Oh, no doubt.
Yes. That greatest homecoming on earth. I like this clock. Atlanta homecoming.
See, the one thing about being
some homecoming.
The one thing about being a part of a football team is it's probably maybe 80 to 90 guys.
Right.
And then that kind of fluctuates. You know, depending on what class you're in and all that stuff. So it's guaranteed for somebody to have a big old grill with a whole bunch of meat on it.
That's right.
And everybody eating good. So,
and I love to eat. I really do. We both do.
Yes, you do. I learned that.
I know.
Well, I can't say too much because I like to eat too. So.
That's right. Exactly. It's what we do in the NO. And speaking of more Black excellence, I guess, Jarvis, with this story, I would say better late than never. It's been a half century, but finally Tommie Smith and John Carlos are getting their just due. So decades before Colin Kaepernick, we give him a shout out for taking the knee, but decades before he did that, Olympic sprinters Tommie Smith and John Carlos were raising a fist back in the 1968 Olympics. And you know, just like him, they were expelled for their actions. So now it looks like the Olympics Committee is finally ready to acknowledge them. And on November 1st, they're going to be inducted into the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Hall of Fame.
Man, wow.
51 years later.
51 years later. I think that in order for us to kind of understand what those guys went through, I think things like this need to start to happen.
Yes.
Because once these things start being put out, that's when people of the next generation who may not know who those guys are, or they may have just seen the picture, and they don't really understand the whole story.
Yeah, the story behind it.
And I think once you're able to do that, I think somebody needs to come forward and go ahead and get that documentary going.
Yes.
I think that's the next step.
Yeah.
I appreciate the Olympic Committee for doing what they're doing, but I think the next step is to be able to tell those guys a story. Now, they had some stuff on ESPN.
And there have been some, there have been some documentaries
but
there,
I think there's something
on a
more
larger scale,
larger scale, because, people in the sports world, we understand, we get it, but I think just for everybody to see, just like Beyonce did the homecoming thing, and being nominated for an Emmy and stuff, I mean, she didn't win. Yeah, she should have won because of the work that she did, but it's about getting that message out there.
Yes, and sometimes your losses are actually your wins, because here we are 2 days later, and that's really the buzz. That's what's still trending about the Emmys, is what didn't happen for her versus what has. So maybe mission accomplished anyway. So speaking
Conversation Rooter Nation.
All day, every day. So speaking of Black excellence, we got a little something we want to share with you guys.
So now it's time to introduce new segment of the show. We're going to be doing the HBU Pioneer of the Week. And
Pioneer of the Week.
This week's Pioneer of the Week is Mel Blount. He's a Georgia native. He was born in 1948. And he was a star player, played multiple sports, baseball, football, basketball, and he ran track.
Yes.
Lord, that man did everything. And due to his football skills, he was able to get a scholarship to attend Southern University. Yeah, I should have set you up for that one. And after that, his career took off. Blount was drafted to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Once again.
In 1970. Yep. And we all know that was the Steel Curtain era.
Yes.
So he was able to win 4 Super Bowls.
Yes.
And this guy was so good. Let me tell you about how good he was. He was so good that he created the bump and run.
Yes.
That was his thing that he made
Yes.
famous. He brought light to that. And it became illegal, and they ended up calling it the Mel Blount rule.
Yes.
So he used to beat up receivers off the line of scrimmage. So for those you don't understand, put your hands on them. He was a very aggressive guy, and for him to be able to do what he did and be able to make a name for himself coming out of HBCU back then, when they weren't allowed to go to PWIs, by the way.
Yes.
Go ahead and get that out the way. But I shout out to Mel Blount,
Yes.
HBCU Pioneer of the Week. Now,
Yes.
you have a little interesting little nugget. Now, you are
I am
related to
friends-
him or
Yeah,
something?
I'm really
or?
good friends with one of his nieces.
Okay,
So shout
yeah.
out to Miss Erin Blunt. But yeah, he is an amazing person. I had an opportunity to interview him for the first time. And, you know, I'm not really one who gets starstruck, but I had to just take a moment and kind of take it in because, as you know, I always say my entire family went to Southern with the exception of me. Shout out to Xavier University. And so just the opportunity to meet him and just to hear the story behind the bump and run, how he and his brothers used to play in the backyard and how that play actually came to being and how he was still humbled, kind of amazed that what he did really changed the face of the game, how the position, not just safety, but how corners played, how, you know, the secondaries played, putting a rule in place for him. He just thought that was amazing. He, at the time, of course, because this was a couple years ago, he loved what Darrelle Revis was doing on the field, and he just really still enjoys and admires the game. Very much still a part of supporting HBCUs because, of course, he was inducted into the Black College Football Hall of Fame and is still very, very active with them in terms of what they do to keep the legacy of Black college football alive. Yeah.
Yeah, and he also, his son, Akil Blunt, went to Florida A&M and played football as well. So he
Nice.
continued the HBCU
Continued that tradition.
Had a chance to go to Southern, but he wanted to blaze his own trail. But
Yeah,
good for
I
him,
can
man.
appreciate that. Yeah,
no doubt,
definitely can appreciate that. So it's time for T and Jarvis to bring what? The tea.
Sweet tea.
Yes, yes. So, you know, Jarvis, I'm not really a fan of doing anything but driving myself, maybe the boo from now, you know, time to time I'll drive, but he does most of the
Talk
driving.
about the boo one of these days.
One of these days we will actually talk about the boo. Not today, though, good people, not today. But, you know, we introduced Tanae into the building, so we might introduce the boo in here one of these good days. But
Indeed.
what I have seen, and this is so funny, I have seen people actually driving down the highway with blow-up dolls and cutouts, right? Trying to get in that HOV lane.
Yeah.
Well, some fans in Kansas City took it maybe one step too far.
Just a little bit. Huh?
Yeah, just a little bit with Pat Mahomes. So, you know, he and Lamar Jackson are coming off a nice battle of the young QBs, particularly the young black QBs on Sunday. Pat Mahomes.
Brothers representing the league,
exactly,
man.
Pat
I
Mahomes
like
and
it.
company
Right.
kind of edged out the Ravens, but I think we're going to see that for years to come, right? But what we don't want to see ever is a fan actually stealing a life-size version of Pat Mahomes from a McDonald's. But that's what the fan did. So the fan steals it, speeds off, then gets into a wreck right after that. So then the cutout's sitting on the back seat. The cops come up, and luckily no one was injured, just minor injuries. But they actually got arrested for theft of the cutout,
Okay.
given a ticket for the incident, and now your insurance is going up all because you wanted to take a joyride with a cutout of Pat Mahomes. What?
Yeah, like I don't understand the fandom that comes with some of these stories, man. Because I just look at it like this, because I have to remind myself, all right, fans is short for fanatic.
Yes, remember that.
But I think that just takes it too far. I
Yeah.
mean, like, come on, man. Like, what are you doing?
What are
You're
you
stealing
doing?
a cutout. Like,
Right.
just go buy one.
Yeah.
You can find it online somewhere. I'm sure there's some podunk website that ships from North Dakota that you can order it from. So, come on, man.
Right. Do
Think
better.
about these
Think
things.
about
Yeah.
these things before you do them right.
Right.
Now, I want to know what your thoughts are on reboots. I'm not a big fan, but I know that's a big deal these days. You see reboots of TV shows, you see reboots of movies, but I will tell you, there might be one or two that I'm really up for. One of them is a reboot of New Jack City. So, Snowfall actor and filmmaker Malcolm Mays is set to write that script. The original, of course, was done by Mario Van Peebles. It starred Wesley Snipes, Ice-T, Chris Rock, Alan Payne. I'm kind of interested, especially to hear your take, because you're a Snowfall fan. You watched the show. You
man.
said that it's awesome when we were just getting ready for this show.
Mm-hmm.
Can you get behind that reboot?
You know what? Initially, I think that a lot of script writers and movie producers are getting lazy.
Yeah.
I think they're getting paid to not do nothing. If you're just going back and go find successful movies from back in the day and then try to reboot them.
Right.
But I think that you have somebody that's really good behind this
you
one
do.
because
Yeah.
the writing and the production behind Snowfall is amazing. It's probably my top one show right now that I'm watching. And I think that this is something that I've been looking forward to it because the young man who's directing the movie, he studied under John Singleton.
Yeah.
So anything John touches, gold for me.
It's gold. It is absolute gold. And you know, another one I'm looking forward to in 2020, the reboot of the Boondocks. I am here for it. I am also Tanitra Batiste, and this is
I'm Jarvis Davis.
Make sure you follow Fill in the Blanks on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We shall see you next week.